So apparently, Microslop is releasing Windows 12 this year. Okay. It's going to be AI first, likely fundamentally AI first. Not just, we stapled a chatbot to the taskbar AI first. Like, it'll require a brand new CPU with a dedicated neural processing unit or NPU just to run core features. And here's the part that's really got people going. It might be subscription based, like a monthly fee to use Windows on your own computer that you paid for. Like, scary, right? People were furious, Reddit was on fire, tech channels were scrambling to cover it, comment sections were full of people saying they were finally making the switch to Linux, and honestly, for once, I didn't even want to hear any other option. Except here's the thing. None of that is true, guys. Windows 12 doesn't exist, at least not currently. There is no announcement, no confirmed roadmap, no leaked build from a disgruntled Microslop engineer. What there is, though, you're gonna love this, is an AI making something up, other AIs treating that as a source, the internet losing its collective mind, and tech journalists publishing stories about a product that was, for all practical purposes, invented by an LLM that was just trying to sound confident. Welcome to the Microslop Chronicles. I'm Olive Badger. I've worked in IT and software development and a bunch of stuff for years, and the industry is doing some really baffling things right now. But what happened this week, I don't know, maybe one of my favorite case studies of how badly wrong our information ecosystem has gotten, because it's not really about Microslop at all, is it? But let's get into it. So let's trace this back to the source, because the origin story here, I think, is genuinely embarrassing, and I want to laugh at it because the details matter. It started with what appeared to be a story from PC World. PC World is a legitimate, long-running tech publication, and people trust it. So when a phrase started circulating online that read like PC World was reporting that Windows 12, codenamed Hudson Valley Next, was on track for a 2026 launch, complete with AI mandatory features and possible subscription pricing, people took it seriously. And the problem was there was no backlink to this, no byline pointing to an original article, no click here to read the full story, just a phrase attributed to PC World floating in the content ecosystem like it had always been there. And other outlets saw this and just assumed it had to be vetted and ran with it, because that is how the content machine works in 2026. You see a claim attached to a brand you recognize, and you assume someone over there checked it out, and you publish your angle on it. The story had already been legitimized by the attribution, right? So why do your job? PC World eventually clarified that the whole thing was a mistranslation of an article from its German sister site, PC Welt. The phrase had been lifted out of context, reframed, and laundered through enough re-reporting that it looked like original breaking news from a trusted source. And by the time the correction existed, the story had already done its damage. And this is not a new phenomenon, by the way. Corrections have always traveled much slower than the original claim. That's been true of newspapers, cable news, and social media for decades. What's new is the speed at which the original claim can reach critical mass now, and the role that AI played in amplifying it, which brings me to the part of the story that I actually find pretty fascinating. Here's where this stops being a story about sloppy journalism and becomes something genuinely weirder. When people started digging into where these Microsoft 12 claims were actually coming from, they found something almost poetic in how broken it was. It was AI-generated content websites that had been citing each other as sources, like site A cites site B, which then cites site C, and site C circled back around and cites site A. This is kind of how journalism works in general, but it was different when these were AI. None of them are citing some leaked internal document. None of them are citing a Microsoft employee on or off the record. None of them are citing an original human reporter who made some calls and checked some facts. They're all like just citing the loop. The story exists because the story exists. Now, this would be embarrassing, but contained, except then those links hit Reddit and users started posting them, arguing about them, expressing real frustration and real concern in the comment section. And when those Reddit threads got scraped by AI research tools, which they absolutely did because Reddit is a massive training and retrieval source. The models found multiple sources saying the same thing, and their confidence scores went up. The hallucination became more credible to the machines because it had spread. That's the loop. AI generates content, content gets indexed, other AI retrieves it as a source. That AI generates more content, citing the verse, humans engage with it, that engagement becomes real, or that engagement becomes data, and then the model gets more confident and the story gets more real, rinse and repeat, right? So I want to sit with that for a second because I think it's easier to hear that and go, well, just don't trust AI then and move on. But that's not quite the right takeaway I think we should be having with this. The issue isn't just that AI hallucinates and makes things up. We all know that, right? We've known that for a very long time, and we've known that since these tools went public. The issue is that we have built an information infrastructure where AI generated content is nearly indistinguishable from reported content, where the incentive structure rewards publishing fast over publishing accurately, and where the feedback mechanisms that used to slow misinformation down, like editors, fact checkers, source verification, have been systematically stripped out in the name of content velocity. The hallucination loop isn't a bug, it's what you get when you optimize your output over the truth. Which is why sometimes I'm a little slow on reporting some of these news stories, because I want to let things settle. I want to be able to get as much research as I can. That doesn't mean I'm always right, but I do really try to just let things sit for a minute. So let me ask you a different question, because I think it's important. Why did this story specifically go as viral as it did? It's not like AI generates fake news and it always explodes. Like, most hallucinated content is boring, right? You have wrong dates, slightly off statistics, a product that doesn't exist in a roundup of products that do, and people kind of just scroll past it. Why did fake Windows 10 catch fire? Because I think it tapped into a fear that is completely 100% grounded in reality. Microsoft has spent the last several years making choices that have genuinely eroded user trust. Windows 11 locked out millions of perfectly functional PCs over TPM 2.0 requirements that by most accounts exist primarily to push hardware refresh cycles. Users who had been running solid machines for years were told their computers were no longer supported, not because they couldn't run the software, but because they didn't have a specific security chip that most use cases don't actually need. Then came Copilot, forced into the taskbar, baked into features, present in the right-click menu, summarizing your documents, whether you asked for them or not. It just rolled out through updates that users couldn't meaningfully opt out of, making your system slower and more bloated and more inefficient. Then came the recall feature, the one that would take constant screenshots of everything you did on your computer and make it searchable. Security researchers immediately started calling it out as a surveillance nightmare, a goldmine for any malware that could access it, and Microsoft even had to delay and significantly restructure it under public pressure. So when a story shows up saying Microsoft's next OS will require a new hardware and subscription fee, people didn't think that seems implausible. They thought, yeah, that tracks. The AI didn't invent the fear, it just wrote a story that fit the fear perfectly, and the fear did the rest of the work. That is genuinely the most dangerous version of misinformation, not the kind that convinces you of something you'd never believe, but the kind that confirms something you already have good reasons to worry about. Okay, so to clear the air, what do we actually know about a supposed Windows 12? As of right now, Microsoft has not announced it. There is no confirmed release date, no confirmed feature set, no confirmed hardware requirements beyond what's already been said about Copilot plus PCs, and the company has made no public statement about a successor to Windows 11. The specific claims in the viral story fell apart quickly under scrutiny. The name Hudson Valley, which the supposed codename for Windows 12, was actually the internal codename for Windows 11 24H2, which is an update version that's already shipped. It's not a future thing. It already happened, and it was just a regular annual update. Core PC, the modular Windows architecture concept that keeps getting cited in these leaks, is real in the sense that it was actually discussed in internal Microsoft documents that leaked a couple of years ago, but has never actually showed up in a public release. So there's currently no credible evidence that it's on an active roadmap. It may have been shelved, it may be ongoing in a form we can't see, but citing it as a confirmed Windows 12 feature is just not supported by anything verifiable. The subscription pricing angle traces back to some internal flags discovered by Windows Code back in 2023. Got a lot of coverage at the time, and understandably so, but those flags were later attributed to enterprise cloud service infrastructure, not a consumer OS paywall. So that connection was never confirmed, and it got folded into the Windows 12 rumor as if it had been. What Microsoft is actually focused on right now, based on credible reporting, is Windows 11 26H2, the next annual update, and addressing the significant backlog of performance and reliability complaints that have followed Windows 11 since launch. The earliest any serious analyst places a Windows 12 release, it's not confirmed either. So as of right now, nothing is coming. The story was wrong. The sources were circular. The code names were misidentified. And the whole thing was believed because Microsoft has made enough genuinely bad decisions that here comes another one felt like the obvious news. So I want to be really direct about something because this is called the Microslop Chronicles and not Microsoft Chronicles. And that name was a deliberate choice. First off, because they cry when we say Microslop, and I want to make big corporations cry. I think it's very entertaining and very funny. Microsoft will probably never hire me, and that is kind of sad, but that's okay. The target of this channel has actually always been about irresponsible deployment of technology, the pattern of behavior across the industry, and not a single company, not a single product, not a single bad executive, just the pattern. And the pattern here isn't really about Microsoft. Microsoft didn't do anything this week. They didn't publish the story. They didn't seed the rumor. They were weirdly the victim of this particular news cycle. The pattern is about what we've allowed the information ecosystem to become. We have an internet that is now partially and in some quarters predominantly written by AI systems that have been optimized to produce content that ranks well and reads plausibly regardless of whether it's true. We have media outlets, including some that used to have real editorial standards, running content farms that prioritize speed and volume over verification. We have AI research tools being used to fact-check stories by querying an internet that's already full of AI-generated content. And we have a correction infrastructure that simply just cannot keep up with the velocity of the original claims. This happened this week, right now, and in tech media, which is supposed to be one of the more skeptical, technically literate corners of journalism. Like, what happens when this same loop plays out in health reporting, in financial news, in coverage of legislation that affects your rights as a consumer or a worker? Those stories are already out there. We're going to maybe be looking. So at the end of the day, Windows 12 doesn't exist, at least not yet, and not anything like what you read about this week, but a story about it, a completely fabricated story generated by AI, laundered through content sites, amplified by Reddit of all places and social media, spread halfway around the internet before a correction got its boots on, and it did that because the machine that makes content has no meaningful incentive to be accurate, and because Microsoft has spent long enough making choices that feel like betrayals that nobody stopped to ask whether this one was real. I thought it was real when I saw headlines, and I was like, whoa, I need to look into this because this totally seems like Windows 12. I just got Windows 11. Like, WTF? Of course, Windows, they're just going to abandon 11 because 11's beyond broken and they're losing money. But the story was fake. And the anger was real, but the story was fake. And the system that connected them is still running. That's what I think we should be paying a lot more attention to. But anyway, if you liked this video, go ahead and give it a like, give me a comment. If you want to subscribe, I like to call out AI and big corporations and talk about technology and gaming, and we're even going to start getting into the nuts and bolts of some of this very powerful technology, starting with machine learning. What is machine learning? How does it work? I want all of us to be educated here, so if that's your thing, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I will warn you though, if you do not hit that subscribe button, I might be forced to banish you to the Shadow Realm.
Much better.
Anyway, that's all I've got for you guys today. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you have the most fantastic rest of your day, and peace out. Bye.